Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Into the North podcast, where we take a look at the competitive side of the Commander format, also known as CDH. I'm one of your hosts, Lyndon, aka Noobsource, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Reed, aka Sick Robot.
Hey, how you doing?
And Morgan, aka Spleenface.
How's it going?
And in this episode, we're going to be doing Divine Intervention Part 2 or 3. I don't know. No, we're not.
No.
It's about, we're going to be talking about draws.
Except
in
this time we're on
CDH.
the other side of the argument.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about draws in CDH, specifically as it pertains to tournament CDH. Because that's really, I mean, I guess you can have draws in casual, but
Yeah.
probably not.
you draw in
I
casual
can't-
when everybody sort of just gives up in the game and wants to go home. And just
Yeah,
like, all right,
so
well,
I
I'll just
can't-
leave it.
I can't remember like a true like actual draw. that's happened in one of my games.
I think we have. I think
Probably.
there's been a turnip server game where it got to like 2:30 in the morning and we all just called it.
No, I mean not like that. I mean like there's like some kind of game state thing that happens that we all die simultaneously.
Oh sure.
I think I got one with Badrick
I
by just being like, I can't win, but I can rolling earthquake.
yeah, just for a bajillion.
That'll do it.
I think I've leaned in Relic Order drawn.
I guess
Oh,
World
we
Gorger.
definitely
You
had
can World
World
Gorger
Gorger
draw.
Dragon.
yeah, we'll go
yeah.
to drawns have definitely happened. I'm trying to think.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
happens, but
Yeah,
it's
it
rare.
has, yes. not easy. Actually, didn't we got a new one recently though, right? Like a new thing that just produces draws at a prodigious rate. Oh, I forgot. It's gonna torture me for the rest of this episode.
Well, I'm
Anyway.
glad you brought it up so that we can
Yeah,
know our
absolutely.
listeners
Hey,
in suspense.
anything for our listeners.
Oh my god. I'm gonna be gut check is just asking what the hell you're talking
Yeah, what the hell? I'm gonna be looking forward for the rest of the episode. So just prepare for me to not be paying attention to the discussion at hand because I'm just scrolling through Scryfall trying to find it.
Okay. Well, before we get into all of that, what have you guys been up to since the last episode?
Morgan.
I got to pet a capybara.
Wait,
Oh,
what?
hell yeah.
That's sick. Toronto Zoo?
Yeah, I went to the the Phoenix Herpetological Society.
Sick.
In Arizona.
in Arizona.
Yeah, so that's
they're
the biggest rodent.
they're less soft than you expect, right?
They do kind of look
They-
rough.
They're a little like I feel like it has like a dry grass texture.
Right, yeah,
the
yeah.
fur. It's not really soft. They're not like fuzzy.
It wouldn't make a nice blanket.
Are
would
they
not.
one of the they're not mustids, right? They're just rodents. So they don't smell like as bad as like skinks and ferrets and stuff do. Yeah.
Do you think they're
No,
smart?
no.
Are they smart rodents? or-
Intelligent species. I mean, you're the only person
Honestly,
who's qualified to answer
the thing
that
is
now.
that they look like they're just done with everything,
Mm.
and that makes them seem smart, even if they're
Yeah, it's the air of the air of intelligence, just not
Nice.
caring about anything.
Cool. Yeah, no, not too much going on for me. Some LGS games, fun stuff like that.
Been trying to do a bit of brewing. I'm trying to get a Voha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get. I think I said I was going to brew it when like Murder's a Co-op Manager got fully spoiled, and then I just like didn't really get around to it. But over the last couple of days, I've been like a bit of brewing for it. It's a weird one. I feel like I definitely just like have to get games in with it to sort of figure out where I'm going because it's one of those ones where I could see a world where I end up being like, I don't think Rule of Law is ever the correct choice just because like drawing a ton of cards is like really good and you want to be able to use all of them, presumably. But I feel like there's a world where I end up using like the new like Doorkeeper Thrall plus like a bunch of, you know, like ETB hate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a world where I just end up playing like just all the good stuff in Naya anyway, and just like playing the dark side, and then just like relying on stuff like Dranath Magistrate and like Dauntless Dismantler and Megalhorn and stuff to keep people in check.
Yeah.
And just like trying that kind of thing. I don't know. I gotta get some testing in, but I do think the deck is interesting. It's really cool. I'm just very sad that you can't invasion of Ikoria from Mirror Entity because it is in fact a human.
Yeah. Do you have your 100 cards, or do you have it down to 100 cards at least?
Well, you know that I don't go down to 100 cards. I have to make it to 100 cards. Yeah, but yeah, I have
true. Yes. Yes.
I have a good stock going. It's it's pretty good. I like it. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with like the land count and stuff like that. And you're pretty dork heavy in the deck anyway, so it's like pretty easy to fill out 100, especially with a bunch of new stuff. Arctur's Charm is cool, is cool in the deck and stuff like that.
Sick. How accurate do you think the list is? If you had to just like
my current list
from the
it's like
percentage,
it's like it's at least 10 cards off. It might be 20 cards off.
Yeah, you think the optimal? Yeah, I mean that's still pretty close. If the optimal list is only 20
I feel
cards
like
off,
I feel like I can usually end within like 30 cards of an accurate-ish list. In terms of what I'm going for, not like, you know, the absolute most optimal version of the deck, but I feel like I feel like it's rare that I land like super far outside the ring in terms of initial brews.
Yeah. That's good. I look forward to playing this.
I hope you're looking forward to it.
Are you saying you're not going for the most optimal version of the deck? What?
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. Most optimal is a very vague term. For me, it's like I don't know. I'll aim for what I want out of a deck, and if I can't make the thing that I want to happen out of a deck, I might just drop it or try it again with like another commander or something.
Yeah, I feel.
I think the big package that I actually need playtesting with is I have a couple of like haste enablers and stuff in there, and I'm not quite sure how good enough those are because like they're great at getting your commander to attack same turn, which is really nice, but like who knows like how much of the time that's going to matter if you just want to like slam it early and untap with it because it has ward 3 and like who's going to deal with that?
Yeah,
it's a 5/5 with ward 3. Like who's killing it?
Ward 1 billion.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, without further ado, let's jump into housekeeping. And in housekeeping, as always, we'd like to give a shout out to our new patrons. So big shout outs to Carrie J and Suradeep G. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, sure.
If I didn't, I'm very sorry. But
I'll give you the pass for now, just so we can get through the episode.
You rock. Why don't you guys say it too? Come on.
I've been covering for you over like the year that you weren't giving you rocks out, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but look, we can't. They became patrons. We can't give them only a third of the U rocks. They deserve.
This is a new initiative from you. Holy moly! I mean, they do rock. It's just
say it.
Morgan, no.
I'm not gonna say it.
No,
wow. If I was a patron,
cool.
I'd feel disrespected.
Yeah, for real.
No.
That's your excuse to go ping Morgan for your U-Rock in Discord.
Yeah.
Always get in DMs if you can't get on the
just
podcast.
Spam his DMs.
I'll like DM it and then like immediately delete it after you see it.
Yeah, can't take the screenshot.
leave no trace.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, on to new developments.
I'll Snapchat it to you. How's that?
Yeah.
Disappears after.
Only on Telegram or what is that? Is that the most secure? Man,
aren't they all cracked? They're like they're all just like
pretty sure they're
fronts
all cracked,
for yeah. Like they're just like there's no secure communication on the internet anymore.
It turns out that when an organization has billions of dollars at its disposal, it's really hard to keep things secure from them if they want to go.
It's not even just one either. They're like at least 3 very well funded like cyber warfare organizations like constantly working on these things.
Yeah. I mean, the only you can't even just say things out loud because your Alexa and your phone, everything's listening. The only secure communication is to write it down on a piece of paper and then immediately burn it.
No, because they can do forensic retracing by getting the
Of the
ash out of
ashes?
the air, out of your garbage can, and then pulling all the burned
Some poor
greenhouse
intern
gas and stuff out of the air.
is rearranging.
Yeah,
dust.
every time you write down a secret note on a piece of paper and burn it, you're like just ruining the week for like 18 interns.
Oh, his grocery list was bananas this time. Living large. Yeah, on to new developments, and I'll let you guys cover these new developments since they're mostly applicable to you.
Sounds good. Or you want to get the first one?
Sure. We mentioned this, I think, on our last regular episode, but Reed and I will be at MagicCon Chicago, which I guess will probably be the weekend after this episode comes out, February 23rd, 4th, 5th, something like that. So come on down, say hi, jam some games of CDH, of Dan, of whatever.
That's a good reminder. I should update my Dan list before we
I
go.
keep meaning to update my Dan list and keep
Yep.
not doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's you just slowly start to feel worse about yourself over time, but it's fine. And then Reed, do you wanna give the next update?
Absolutely. So we will also, and I just learned this today, so this is as new for me as it is for everybody listening to this, is that both myself and Morgan will be going to a CDH tournament that'll be happening in Boston on March 2nd, being hosted by King's Court Gaming. Pulled that one, had that one ready to go. So yeah, come out if you're in the area, in the general Boston area, road trip. I've heard it's a good shop, a lot of cool peeps out there. The Boston CDH scene is also just like one of the oldest, like, large CDH scenes in the world. So I would not be surprised if it is a fantastic time, and in fact, I'm expecting it. And yeah, we'll be happy to see anybody there that's coming out.
Cool. Well, that brings us to the main topic of the show, where I'm actually just going to leave for an hour, and we'll let Morgan just kind of do a solo podcast.
How did this just become only me?
It's actually, like,
Reed also goes to tournaments.
I do. I don't think I think I care about tournament formats and such when they affect me, and then it like very quickly leaves my mind afterward, and I have to like rebuild back up from first principles, where it's just like it's like a perpetual stew in Morgan's brain.
Yeah. The easiest, like,
I
oh, Morgan, how
thoughts in
should
my head.
what's the tournament math for this? It's like, oh yes, I've got let me pull up my thing that all my notes that I've been working on for like 4 years.
All right, so I've got Lyndon on one shoulder, Reed on the other. We're carrying the team.
Absolutely.
So
before we get into this, the world's strongest man currently is Canadian for the first time ever.
Really?
I
did not know
had
that.
no idea until very
but I
recently.
guess that makes sense.
And he
because
apparently,
I'm literally carrying an entire podcast.
I
on my
think
back.
he lives in Brampton. Anyway,
Really?
yeah,
Cool.
weird place for the world's strongest man to live, but
Real.
Yeah, so I guess the sort of the first the initial animus for this, no, animus is the wrong word, but the thing that motivated us to make this episode and to talk about it is there's been some discourse in the CDH community, which is always a bad sign, about draws in particular in tournaments, but there are sort of some other questions and discussions that have been happening. I know a group just released an updated proposed multiplayer tournament rule set, and so people have been talking about that. So we're just going to be going through some of the problems with tournaments and our proposed solutions, and things that we think maybe could be improved with. This is mostly going to be about like tournament format and structure, not like anything apart from that.
Yeah.
So the current draw epidemic, it's been a lot of discussion, but several tournaments have had high draw rates, both unintentional draws. I believe there was one analysis that showed in the first rounds of Mox Masters, like the early rounds, so very few people IDing
Mhm.
The draw rate for at least one of them, I think, was something like 16%.
Which is just like,
Which,
if you have context for like having played in like, you know, like 1v1 games, like even God, that's gotta be like high for even a percentage of games going to time in like 1v1 like 60 card tournaments.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
not even
it's,
just draws, like just matches that go to time period, and we're seeing like that as a draw rate.
yeah. Which I guess in this case is the same thing because these tournaments are no longer
Yeah,
doing
don't.
turns.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a,
In, ter-
that's a very,
in,
very
ter-
high
in terms
rate.
of the result on and the effect on the tournament, yeah. Issues.
And then the other sort of issue or thing that goes along with this is particularly these larger tournaments have seen a huge number of players IDing often their last 2 rounds out of not that many, like 2 out of 5 or 2 out of 6 rounds, and top tables basically being locked in or like 3/4 locked in after 3 rounds of a 5-round tournament. And people aren't happy about that because the tournaments are there for people to play Magic, and people doing tournament coverage want their top tables to play so they
Yeah,
can cover
you
their
wanna
matches.
just, like, have interesting games to cover that aren't just the cut.
Yeah, so it's an interesting problem. And
I
it's
don't
caused
I don't think like it's not even a solved problem in the context of like regular competition either, which I think makes it even more interesting to talk about. Like IDs are certainly not as much of an issue even in like say 60 card Magic and like a lot of other like tournament structures and stuff, like Swiss tournament structures, but like there's still a bit of a problem. Like they probably happen more often than tournament organizers want them to, and there hasn't really been a good solution, which yeah definitely makes this more interesting to talk about, I would think.
I'll also like to throw in too that it's possible that so obviously we're going to be talking about problems that exist in the current structure, but that's not to say that if changes are made that that things somehow don't get worse or new problems come up, because something that you could think about that you're not going to really think about right now because it's not really an issue, but if you remove kind of like this whole thing of like the 4 top players are in a pot at the end, they all ID. What if they're thrown into games where people need to win and they can deal with a win or a draw or a loss? It doesn't matter. Or I guess let's just say, yeah, that they need at least a draw to secure their position. Does having a player play for a draw from the beginning of the game kind of ruin that game or, taint it a bit?
I think that's like less of an issue, especially because like results like the walking in happens because we can get into this a bit more. I mean we can get into this now, I guess, but also like we get into this a bit more later. But like I feel like the locking in early happens because the cuts are like feel a bit restrictive in terms of size compared to the overall tournament size, whereas like the fact that your results or the points that you have going into top cut actually determine seeding and seeding order in the top cut means that I think it's unlikely that in that specific situation, Lyndon, that like you play for a draw from the start of the game unless you're playing like some hard control deck or a stacks deck or something, because it's just higher EV, I feel like, too, especially if you got paired, like if you're paired with against people with like worse records, right? Like presumably you should feel like you have a better chance of winning that pod, so you should be like aiming to win from the start so that you can lock in a better seat for the top cut.
if your seat is top 4 with a draw, or like if you're top 4 and top 16 with a draw, then you can't really improve your seat, I guess, in your at least the first round of top 16, right? So you might be worth playing. Like if you lost and you would go from first seat to maybe like second or third seat, but if you draw, you guarantee your top
Sure.
4 and top 16 and going first. Like I would rather play for a draw than a win.
Absolutely doesn't matter, yes. But I have a feeling that's a pretty rare case.
No, it's certainly rare. Just I said, like, who knows if we you can change tournament structure and then different problems can crop up.
Yes.
So, just something to keep in mind. Like, it's really the reason why we were even having this discussion in the first place is because it turns out this is not a super trivial problem.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad place to start talking about. I think one of the solutions we see proposed a lot that I'm very, very not a fan of is making draws worth 0 points. Which does remove all incentive to ID. That is true. But it creates a whole bunch of other really sort of a bunch of other negative externalities where like people can sort of be bullied by wanting to avoid a draw, because if a draw is the same as a loss, it creates
then why would I not just like jam here or whatever. There are some like weird incentives.
Yeah, like for example, I don't think it's good to have the last turn of the game just be like a wild flail, because you realize like if I pass, I'm not getting another turn, so I might as well try
like all and
make if just I passed, abominably bad.
If I pass turn, all results are the same here. Like the draw is the same as the loss, so I should just go for it.
Draws do kind of afford that stability to the game, and I feel like results in less. I don't judge it by like feels bads, but I mean, it is kind of a feels bad, when a game is just, it feels like you've worked so hard to get into this position, everyone's in a sort of equilibrium, and then it's like, just because of the structure of things, it's, exactly like Morgan said, everyone just starts fucking panicking.
There's definitely some overlap, though, between feels bads and like competitive integrity. I don't know.
No, for sure.
Like, I'm not saying
cheated. Right?
I'm not saying by like following the incentives of whatever the tournament structure is that you're like it's you're like a bad competitor or whatever. But like it's definitely like the incentives themselves sort of pervert the competition in a way in some cases.
Well, I think incentives guide people's behavior, but I think people's reactions to that behavior is kind of independent of tournament structure, right? Like, it's not going to change the fact that it feels like kind of a lame way to end the game if that's how people are acting, even though you might objectively feel like, well, it's kind of fair and they're acting in their own best interest according to the tournament structure.
Yeah.
It doesn't really negate the fact that you might feel bad about it.
So I guess we can discuss some of the other causes of this. So like when it comes to the unintentional draws, we've seen a reduction in the tournament time as well as the elimination of turns. Now, I'm a big fan of the elimination of turns because they took such an insanely variable amount of time that it meant, like, we saw tournaments, if you have like any inefficiency in your result input pairing, like let's say the turnaround time on that is even 10 minutes, right? From the time your last match is submitted to the time the next round is posted, just, because you have to confirm something or whatever. And then you can have your last match take like an extra, like easily 30 minutes for a turn cycle, especially when it's like a high stakes thing. Everyone goes, oh, this is the last turn cycle. We don't have any time limit, so like I'm going to play to maximize my chance to win, and everyone goes for an attempt or has like a complex turn. We've seen these things take like half an hour, and that just means that, like, if you're running, say, 75-minute rounds with a round of turns, you have to schedule them like basically 2 hours apart.
Yeah, which is sort of defeating the purpose of the trend of tournament Magic or tournament Siege recently, which is shortening the rounds and trying to get them more compacted. It's just like,
it's interesting too how these kind of like the turns rule and the hard clock can affect incentive, not just within the meta tournament structure, but within the game itself. And how, people, I think there might be still room for maybe not turns as it was previously implemented, but maybe even just a single extra turn. Not for everyone, but just in the entire pod. And it would be something, this is how kind of why I think it would, something needs to be.
Well, I mean,
about this is because
typically currently,
hold on.
The result is like you finish turn player finishes their turn when he gets to time, right?
I know, but what I'm saying is, I think that the way that's currently structured incentivizes stalling. As the game gets on towards the end, it's, can I stall this out? Like, you're not really incentivized to have a quick turn and keep passing, right? Because someone else is just going to probably stall. So I think if you have something like whoever's turn it ends on doesn't get an extra turn, but maybe the next player does, you're kind of incentivized to keep kicking it down.
Second order stalling at that point then, though, because then you want to theoretically you want to stall just a bit for the person in front of you's turn if you think that it's going to time out there, or maybe you stall for the person that is directly diagonally across from you at the table, so that they end just before time, and then time's called the turn before yours to get one. So you're never
saying there's ways to
that.
game that, but what I'm saying, even what you just described requires a lot more concerted strategy, right?
Planning,
to think about to whether or not you're stalling on the person who's diagonal from you's turn is that's. I mean, I think it's much easier also to stall on your own turn, and that's what I want to disincentivize.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think there's still room to explore. But I do agree that I think the way turns were previously structured were just awful. And then obviously when you do add even any extra turn, you add some variance in round length, which can also be problematic.
I mean, we can all just agree that getting away from
every time you pass the turn in the last 10 minutes, you get an extra turn after time.
Just people are just mashing F6 and trying to rack up as many turns as they can get for time. It's okay, everybody just agree that we're just gonna pass 5 turn cycles between us and just draw pass, so we can all have turns. And then everybody in the bot gets a DQ because the judges don't want to deal with it.
Honestly, I think that's really what we just need is judges to hand out more DQs.
Yeah, just straight DQs.
But yeah, not even a match loss and escalating penalties. Just nope, I didn't like that. You're out of here.
Yeah, I do want to see in the future at some point the you're being an asshole infraction, which is just a straight DQ, which is just you're just being sort of a dick, so get out.
I think they need a dunk
social,
tank, right? They just
not social dick, just you're being a dick to the tournament organizers and the structure. We can't really run the tournament with you playing, so out, bye.
I think everyone in the tournament every round should get a vote for someone that whoever.
Yeah, it's a survivor. Oh, it's hybrid survivor CDH. Yes, I'm sorry, you've been voted off the island.
Yeah, that I can't see that doing anything particularly.
I see zero ways this could ever go wrong.
Certainly, there's no way they would
imagine
the tournament favorites, right?
Imagine the ad revenue that you could pull in from streaming all of this.
I'll sell my vote, man. You want me to vote for someone, dude? I'll vote.
You just have you have Twitch chat get votes as well. Yeah. They just get to vote at 1,000th power or whatever.
Actually, I feel like they should just pull names from a hat. Actually, unlucky players don't deserve to win.
You just DQ a random person every round.
I don't want unlucky people working at my company. That's why I throw in half of the resumes without even looking. Yeah. Okay, what's next, Morgan?
I guess we have,
that's wow. That's so brutal. I actually, I feel for Morgan now. Fuck you, Linda.
I guess we have the intentional draws. So this is a little bit more of a complex issue. and we'll get into solutions or things to mitigate both of these after. This is a bit more of a complex issue. I think it really started taking off. I mean, no, not I think. I know it only started taking off when tournaments switched to a Swiss pairing structure.
Yeah.
Because hard as it may be to believe, but back in the annals of yesteryear, in the land before time that was, I don't know, like 2021.
Yeah.
Most
Like under
CDH tournaments
1,000
actually
days, yeah.
just used random pairing. And it does have advantages or it does have disadvantages in that there is a certain sort of aesthetic balance to having top players all play each other. You get to sort of like track stories as the winners like face off, and then the winners of the winners are the ones leading the pack. And you have like the top players who keep winning, who are on a collision course to facing each other, and all of that is very nice from like a tournament, particularly from a tournament coverage point of view, where it gives you like a narrative and a story, and it just makes sense. That's how other Magic tournaments run. But other Magic tournaments, like large ones at least, have a lot more players and a lot more rounds.
Yeah.
And so these sorts of like externalities or these results that happen where people start taking advantage of the tournament structure by doing things like IDing matter a lot less, right? Like you have at like a GP. Oh man, that's reaching even farther back.
Yeah.
They stopped having those in 2019. You'd play 15 rounds of Magic, and you'd have hundreds of players. And so, like, maybe usually the top players would often play out, like, the two people with the best record who are paired in the final round would be locked for top 8 anyways, and so they'd play for position. And then, like, there'd be maybe one or two tables who were locked for top 8 if they drew, and they would ID. And that was, fine, because if you think about it, that means, let's say you have 2 or even 3 tables IDing. You have 3 tables IDing in the last round of a 15-round tournament where there were, I don't know, 200 games of Magic per round. So you had, people drop, but
Like
3,000 games of Magic.
Fractions of a percentage point of
even if you sort of
rounds
you
drawn.
assume that half the people have dropped by the last round. You have like 2,000 games of Magic and 2 or 3 IDs. All right, cool. That's not a problem. But when you have rounds that are made up of like optimistically 40 to 50 games, and there's only 5 of them, and then like top tables are IDing the last, like you have tables of 2 or 3 tables IDing the last 2 rounds.
Yeah.
You're looking at like, something like well over 1% of your games, and particularly a large percent of your like top games or games of players who are live. Because in the last round, there might be like 40 people who are live for top 16 in theory, depending on how those games play out. That's probably high, maybe
probably a bit lower,
25-ish. And then if like 12 of those people just ID, then like half of your top players just aren't playing the last 2 rounds.
Yep.
And that kind of sucks. It means that people are locked in for their rounds very early after locked in for top 16 after winning early rounds. And that happens because in a Swiss pairing system, you're paired with people who have the same record as you, which means if you're locked for top 16, if you can draw out, the people you're paired with are also locked for top 16 if they can draw out.
And you filter down to an effective top 16 faster.
Yeah. Whereas when you have random pairings, if you're, let's say you're, 2-0-1, like you have an actual draw, not an ID, and 2 wins after round 3 of a 5-round tournament, you can probably just draw your way into top 16, but if you just get paired with someone who's like 1 and 2,
good luck convincing your pod to draw up to
they're live if they can get 2 wins, but they're probably not live if they can only get a win and a draw, so they're going to want to play it out. Or even if a win and a draw gets them in, like, you want to get the
draw
win first,
now?
right?
Yeah, why draw first?
So that does give a little bit. It makes it much less likely that you'll have a pod full of people who want to ID, because IDing is a collective decision. Now, that will potentially create scenarios where
it creates terrible scenarios sometimes, but
where people just gang up to eliminate a player and then ID.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, that requires some amount of effort, and I think also
it's actually probably a preferable result to TOs for the most part than
at least
like
they're playing a game.
Yeah, they're playing like
it's a little bit different
Magic
than the one you were hoping.
And it's funny too that you mentioned Swiss as like it creates this narrative, and you know you have these top players, and that's good for casting and tournament coverage. But the scenario that results of just the games not being played by the top players is just a disaster for coverage.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's so you could argue that like the random pairings is.
Sorry, when I say that Swiss is good for casting, I mean like absent this issue where people conceptually having filtering down into a smaller and smaller number of top players who keep having to face off against other top players makes for good coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to actually play. So
imagine playing Magic at a Magic tournament.
Honestly, that's why I just take Cody, because it's just the minimal amount of Magic.
Absolutely.
We hate this game, by the way.
It's just like
podcast.
Zero desire to play. I just want to just play Cody and go home. Famously.
So you know, there's a few different overlapping issues, and again with the Swiss pairings compounds with opponent match win percentage being the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So like early wins are just so good. Where if you win early,
a round 1 win is like worth more than any win before the top cut.
Yeah. If you win early, you get paired against better players, which means you get better breakers, which is just a self-reinforcing cycle where you can just sort of get dragged along by having good breakers from a couple early wins. And I guess that compounds with another massive issue. This isn't a tournament issue. This is a CEDH issue broadly. But you know, if early wins are a massive advantage, then I think we could all agree that it would be really bad if there was something completely random and outside of the control of players that gave people a massive advantage in a game, right? Because then whoever gets that advantage in round 1 would have a massive advantage in the tournament, right?
Dibs going first round 1.
Just call that, you get that one forever.
I put my finger on the nose first.
And there
actually remember our cheating episode, and we were talking about all the, you know, maybe the real cheat is just like a way to die.
Truly.
Going first is just the ultimate cheat code.
So we've seen a few attempts to mitigate the advantage of going first in turn structure. Usually that is tournament organizers implementing something into their pairing algorithm that sort of adjusts players' likelihood to go first over time. And that's
according to
nice.
The previous seeding, usually.
Yeah, that's nice. You know, it at least smooths out like
the variance,
the mega unlucky or mega lucky case of just like going first 4 or 5, like 4 times out of 5,
especially with CDH having lower round numbers per tournament for the same entrance.
So that's cool, but it doesn't solve the issue. I mean, even if everyone got a perfectly weighted and balanced distribution of number of times they went in each seat position. Again, the earlier your wins, the better. So having, particularly in a Swiss structure, so having that going first advantage, which I believe the numbers that we have, every time I've seen the numbers crunched,
it's like around plus 10% or something.
I think I usually see
40%.
close to 40, like 40 plus minus 2.
So like plus
percent
15%
win rate
on the table, yeah.
Going first. So we're looking, somewhere between like plus 13 and plus 17, depending on the data set I've seen. Even if we say that's lower, a plus 10 advantage in winning is
still
massive.
Way too much.
and the flip side is the person going fourth, I think, is at roughly a minus 10.
Yeah.
So like that, it
might be minus 5, but minus 5 is still too much.
No.
Is it?
I feel like the numbers I've seen is that fourth is at about minus 10, third is at minus 5, 2 is even, and first is plus 15. There.
I thought
Anyways,
4 was still around. Anyway, it doesn't.
I've
really
definitely
matter,
seen a
the
bunch
point,
of different numbers from different.
The point can still be made either way here, which is
which is you can be at a massive advantage or disadvantage in a given game, and depending on which game that is, that can carry forward through the entire tournament. If you
it does, for the
capitalize.
record. This also is not just like hypothetical, like, oh, look at the flaws of this tournament structure. It's like, no, this like happens every tournament. Like somebody gets like their good win early, and then that carries them through to breakers for like when it gets tight in later rounds.
It's happened to me. I got one win in a tournament, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm done." Like, and then I made top 16 and got a demonic tutor.
Yeah,
I knew at the time, I was like, "This is bullshit. This is completely bullshit. I should not be getting this." But that's the way tournaments.
In
are
fairness,
structured.
I think there were some other problems with that pairing algorithm, but conceptually, like, I think it exacerbated the issue we're discussing here. Because it, like, I think it was repairing the same people together.
Yes.
But, like, conceptually, the issue still stands there of having those, that early win and then the draws, and having really good breakers can make it just so much easier to make top cut. And yeah, that's a problem. So I guess...
This is just a question. It really seems like most of the key problems that you highlighted with the way things are run, like those could be solved by switching to random pairings. Is that
those? Those problems specifically could be at least mitigated. Yeah.
So why haven't we done that as a community? Is there some actual like big disadvantage to random pairings? Because you said that we moved away from what that used to be the norm, and we moved away from it.
So I don't think anyone ever liked random pairings. I don't think the decision to do random pairings was a conscious one. It was more just like we didn't have software.
Yeah, it was just like we just sort of have to pair people as is.
So that was like the way they felt they could actually do it. And like, I don't, there certainly are disadvantages to random pairing. I mean, obviously, you know, the whole narrative thing is not ideal, and it does create potential feel bads of like, again, I think
you get
the floor of player in CEDH tournaments is lower,
pretty low,
like, than like a modern tournament, and also because it's 4-player free for all. Like, I guess what doesn't feel good is you're a player who's like doing well, but not like locked, and then you just get thrown into like a completely random. Either you get thrown into a pod of completely random people who just do absolutely wild things and throw games, or there's 2 players. They're both, let's say they're both win-in-ins, and one of them gets randomly paired into a pod of, I don't know, 3-1 3-1, 2-1-1, and 2-2, and one of them gets randomly paired into like the O3s that brought casual decks just for fun.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the one who gets
And-
paired
yeah.
into the pod of successful players on strong decks, that's gonna feel pretty bad when the person who had the same
breakers
record
don't
as you
matter, but
goes,
your record does.
Oh,
and then
cool.
they just get
I had a completely free win against like this pod.
or
Um,
the even worse feeling one, because it's very visceral, is you are in a pod with two people who are like, 0 wins and like, either brought casual decks or just like aren't doing that well, and then you're in a pod with two like presumably like winning players who are like pretty good, presumably, and one of them is very good at manipulating like inexperienced players into doing what they want them to do, and the other player is not as good, and that player has to sit and watch the other player like basically manipulate the table into giving them a win without being able to do much about it. And that's
Here's-
a terrible feeling.
I mean,
here's
it's a
an
bad feeling,
interest-
but isn't that also kind of part of the game a bit? Like, I mean,
yeah, but
that is a skill that they
I don't think it's unreasonable
player.
as a tournament organizer to want to reduce feels bads where possible, right?
Wouldn't it also be a feels bad though if you in round 1 are going 4th and then you get paired because you're now because you're going 4th?
I'm not
the
saying this
increased likelihood
excuses
to be
the other
stuck
ones,
in
but-
like the
as someone
dregs
who's got,
of the
like, 4th, 3rd, 4th in the first 3
Yeah.
rounds, it absolutely does feel bad.
because
but it's-
those kind of pod competitions you were talking about of like the players who bring casual decks, like you kind of then get relegated. Like the worse you start doing initially, the more you're pushed into that bracket where it feels harder and harder to claw out of because you're then getting those kind of like random like people throwing games and
Well,
things
I
like
think
that.
if you're in a fully low, like a bracket full of low performers as opposed to randomly paired with some, then it actually does get easier as you get paired against like weaker opponents.
Mm.
It's when you have a mix like where you have two weak
And it's an
opponents
unpredictable mix, yeah.
who throw to one of your other strong opponents. But here's an idea that I just kind of thought of. So the obvious problem with this is it will feel bad for players from like a player agency sense. But what if you did random pairings and then you just force dropped everyone who is dead? Like it's
sure.
round
There's,
5,
like, no
you're
incentive to
3-1.
Mhm.
Sorry, you're just not playing.
or you
create two pools. You create the pool of live players, like even infinitesimally live players, and then the pool of non-live players, and you can just pair them separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The non-live players would get paired, and they just don't cross pools. Yeah, actually, that's a very
Which
I kind of like that.
I think if you can automate that, I absolutely think that should be the case. I think the only argument is probably there's probably some argument. I don't have it fully formed in my head, but there's probably some argument about like, oh, you shouldn't know how live you are or whatever. But I think that's probably pretty easily disproven.
What? Why wouldn't you know how live you are?
Or like you shouldn't know exactly what the standings are. Like we can't, there's the whole thing about like, oh, we can't tell you how live you are. Like it, the tournament organizer can't tell you like if you're live or not. You have to do the math on your own.
Well,
Also,
But
no, I think they can.
But I don't think this is actually an issue. I just there's
at the
stuff that
very
people would
least,
bring up.
there
but-
are mathematically,
yes.
if there are more than 16 players who you cannot pass by getting a win, then you're dead. Like that's a pretty simple button. Maybe you don't have to eliminate like everyone who's technically dead if you do the math on like they win, but
but you can
there's
just
no
do like
way that they can get the right breakers to beat these other.
you can do like a conservative naive like
you could even just do it more than just 2 pools. You could do maybe even 3 pools. Like you could have the pool of people who need 1 win to be live, or pool of people who need a win and a draw, or 2 wins, or
edge
something like
too close to like not recreating Swiss necessarily, but like you probably drop a bit too close to like just having some unforeseen outcomes and incentives if you do that.
The problem with that is anyone who's like if you delineate the pods too much, then anyone who doesn't need good results to win is in the ID bracket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if it's
but
like, you just need a draw to make in the next 2 rounds to make top 16. Well, cool,
Well, I think it would be more
ID.
about you would not stratify the very top. It would be more about like cutting away the bottom, kind of what your initial thing was.
Sure.
So it was like,
but I think it makes sense to just like cut away basically the people who would most obviously like ruin potential incentives in pods, and then just like let the rest of everybody play it out. Because you're all live, so theoretically you should all just be playing for a win anyway.
and how do you propose? I mean, I kind of like this. And how do you like? What's your favorite solution for turn order? Because my favorite solution for turn order is everyone's guaranteed to go first, second, third, fourth in a 4-round tournament, and then you go.
I don't
first,
actually
fourth,
know
or
that
third.
you can do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's mathematically possible for all possible like permutations of like number of people in a tournament and like certain numbers of drops and stuff, right? Because if people leave before getting their full round, then it messes with the pairings in like ways that aren't super obvious to figure out.
Like conceptually, I like that idea. The sort of slightly looser solution that I proposed was you have your tournament software roll a die for everyone, and then you essentially just add the total sum of their previous seat positions to their roll. So in theory, like you can still, there's still like some luck. It's not perfectly predictable, and you can't like have the fail case of, oh, everyone's supposed to be guaranteed this, but I can't hit this. But essentially, it just like it smooths out the extremes over time.
Yeah.
But again, that like any solution that works over multiple rounds doesn't work in a world where we're doing Swiss pairings with opponent match win as the primary tiebreaker.
Yes.
Okay,
so get away from Swiss. That's the big takeaway.
Well, no. It's
the other option is as your primary tiebreaker, you actually had your seat position.
Yeah. Over the course of a bunch of rounds, which is interesting. I'm still not convinced by this one yet fully, but I do think it's an interesting one to explore. And I think if I was running, hey, if anybody out there is running some local tournament series or is helping to TO them or whatever, if there's like, you're running like 16-person tournaments or whatever, test out some of these, let us know.
Yeah, but anyone want to volunteer to just let Morgan dictate how the tournament is structured, and so we could run experiments.
He's not going to do any of the actual work, but he'll give you the framework on how to actually.
It'll be like asking ChatGPT for a tournament structure. You'll just get like a weirdly printed out set of instructions. It's like, all right.
And anyone wearing
the hands look really weird too. Like the hands in the like round structure document all have like 3 fingers for some reason. I don't know. Don't ask.
Okay. Anything else that we haven't covered? I mean, there's a couple things here.
Yeah. So I guess we spoke about time when we were talking about non-intentional draws.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing here is I think the vast majority of tournament draws are caused by players who aren't playing fast enough. Like,
yeah.
Pace
of play has, I mean, how often have we said this over the course of like years and years and years? Pace of play is a constant issue, and it's not one that you can solve through education because, like, it's not solvable on an individual like player level because you like sort of by definition, if the community is growing, you always have people who like aren't going to be playing at the same pace of play, like at a quote unquote. You're gonna have some percentage of the community that isn't playing at a quote unquote acceptable pace of play. It's just like always going to happen.
And unfortunately, I think it's much harder to enforce. Well, okay, there's a couple reasons. It's harder to enforce in CDH than it is in 1v1 Magic. In part because I think the variance on what constitutes an acceptable pace of play is much higher. Like, there are a lot of turns where, like, oh, there's a lot of stuff. There's 4 players playing like cards. There's like 17 static effects on the board, and it's like, okay, what the hell am I doing? Can I go for it here? Do I have a chance? Like, how many pieces of interaction do I think there are? How many can I fight through? Like, all of that stuff. Can I afford to let this potentially scary thing resolve? Or, all of that. Like, there will be turns that just take a while to resolve. And, like, times where it's appropriate to let people stop and, like, plan out, okay, here's what I want to do over the next few, like, actions I'm taking. And also, unfortunately, the downside of a social format is that the person who calls the judge on their opponents, like, if they do it enough, just starts
Is the
taking
bad guy.
a social penalty.
Which can basically directly correlate to win rate inside of said game. Because suddenly, if you're the dick in the pod, your politics get a lot less convincing and a lot less effective, and suddenly you're just like, you're playing the game from a handicap for trying to, enforce pace of play, enforce like getting the game to end in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we just need judges to, like, do we need like a secret call button for judges?
Panic button under the table. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, if that was a possible runnable thing, it sucks that you can't, like, because electronic aids and stuff, or you just can't really run a tournament with that. But if everybody, like, if there was like an app on your phone and you can guarantee that nobody was using their phone for cheating or communication, like covert communication or whatever, I think it would be a great idea to just have like an app with a call judge for a slow play button.
I just know for a fact Reed would be pressing that button like one of those rats they did experiments on.
Yeah.
Like
the Skinner box. It's a Skinner box. Yeah, it's a Skinner box. Absolutely. I get dopamine every time I call a judge for something for slow play.
Honestly, I feel like I at least like when I've played with you, I feel like I've been the one being like, guys, can we hurry it up, please?
That's probably true, but that's because I will like immediately go to calling a judge and just like go for a diffusal of the social situation while calling said judge, rather than like explicitly asking like, hey, can we speed up? I'll just go like, hey, I'm just gonna call a judge for pace of play, like keep doing your thing, keep taking your turn. I'm just gonna like make sure it's being monitored. Where I feel like you go for, hey guys, can we speed this up a bit? And like when the turn's taking a bit long.
Yeah. And man, it's so frustrating when you're like 25 minutes from the end of the round and you're like, guys, we need to
I
speed.
know
like,
this is going to time if this continues as
like,
it is.
We should be able to get at least 3 turn cycles in, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of a problem that there's not really a good way to mitigate. I guess conceivably an online platform could have like there are a lot of problems with MTGO. But potentially an online platform,
and X-Mage, yeah.
I'm saying like an online platform that didn't necessarily have like a rules engine, but did have like a priority tracker, where like you could agree to shortcuts and like all the things you can't do on MTGO, where like executing a combo is very obnoxious, or like you misclick and you just get wrecked.
Right.
Like you don't have a rules engine, and it's like cockatrice in that sense, but you do have priority passing,
explicitly priority passing,
and a timer. You could just give everyone a set amount of time, but I think I'd like playing with a chess clock sounds absolutely miserable. Because like there's just so many.
I don't think we ever tested it, but it's just you basically have to like play the entire game with a hand on the pass priority button, which is just like not where you want to be.
Yeah.
I like this is one where they're just like, I'm not sure there's like a potentially like there's a solution in the near future without a pretty large effort on the side of like whatever TOs are running tournaments for this kind of stuff, because like we've talked about it for a long time about like, there needs to be, we need to reduce the what's it called, like we need to reduce the social stigma of calling judges for slow play. You need to like just have people more actively calling judges for watching pace of play at a table, and like you have to be more okay with like, you know, confronting a table with all that stuff. But that's, you know, those aren't solutions. That's just like trying to make the game better at a macro level. But like you can't, none of those are like things that actually like solve the core issue here, which is that people play slowly and there's not really enough enforcement going around to solve that. I guess the optimal one for real life tournaments is just to have enough table judges to go around, which is never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you'd need so many, and
Yeah.
like, unfortunately,
You need like a table judge for like every 5 tables or something, or like every 10 tables, which is just like unachievable. And
wait, hang on a second, I've got it. The CDH Panopticon. So you never know if a judge is watching you for slow play. You set up eight games around a one-way mirrored room with a judge in it.
This is what machine learning is for. We're gonna have the machine learning pace of play judge that we're gonna have a model trained to watch players for slow play, and then there's just gonna be just an AI that just gives you infractions for slow play, and you can't argue it.
I think it's
a black box. We're just gonna accept that it's right.
The games of CDH are played like just in a line. Like you're at a line like in a grocery store, and there's a bunch of people behind you, and you know they're like, oh my god, you know they're tapping their feet. Hurry it up, please. Or maybe they're playing like the.
It's just the social shame.
Yeah.
And so I guess the other thing is that I don't think I've ever seen a slow play penalty issued. And this is a minor thing that I'm just going
only
to mention.
Unofficial warnings.
People need to figure out ways of actually penalizing people that aren't like a match loss,
taking you out of the game. Yeah,
a match loss which a game loss is a match loss because it's played as best of one. So a game loss is like often just a DQ. Like, there's like a 50-50 chance that that's a DQ. So, judges aren't going to hand out those sorts of infractions unless it's, like, absolutely savagely bad. Or it's, like, cheating or whatever. So, I mean, we've discussed this a few different times. The most obvious solution to me is just point penalties.
Yeah, I think I still agree with that being the most reasonable course of action for like penalizing slow play is just either like a full win's worth of points and penalties, or you can do like half wins worth of points and penalties. So you do like, you know, like a 2 or 3 point penalty for a 5 point.
Oh wait, no, I don't even mean that. I mean like even if a win is 5 points, I think you're like, if you're playing slow, you get like the one warning the judge tells you to play faster. And then the next time, even just 1 point. Like, that's pretty material. That puts you in a lower point bracket than everyone else with the same record as you. So you still really have an incentive to avoid it. But, like, having it happen, you know, if it happens more, you might be able to, like, come back from it because other people in your bracket will get these penalties. And I think in a world where they were giving out point penalties, judges might be a little more trigger happy on actually assigning the infractions rather than giving warnings.
Definitely.
Because like it just right now, you know, judges generally aren't like cruel, and so they don't want to just like crush your hopes by giving you a full match loss. So they don't. And
I wonder if there's something.
It'd also be nice too for people who is like, if you're stalling and you're really taking your time towards a game, and it's like you're stalling for a draw.
Yeah, like, you get a point penalty. You might as well not have stalled for a draw. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that. I really like that. Yeah.
There's also something to be said for like, I don't know. You could like get even more into the weeds there in terms of like, oh yeah, like first warning, just like it's not even just a warning. It comes with like a tie break penalty. Yeah, and then you start getting into point penalties and stuff, right? Where it's just like, okay, first one we called over here, like you need to play faster. You're getting dropped 1 place on the standings for this. Like you just go down 1 place from wherever you are, or like something like that, right?
I mean, I do think you want to keep the
you want to
like that just gets weird because then it's like
are your
breakers like actually adjusted or like.
I meant that in terms of like actual like effective, like
Sure. Yeah.
effective. Like, you know, we're taking off a couple of percentage points from your like opponent match win percentage, or like your whatever your table position was or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Effectively dropping you down one place on the standings.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think it's a tricky penalty to solve. I think all of this stuff will mitigate
Absolutely,
it, but
yeah.
not like make it not a problem anymore.
But yeah, it's the I think the functional solution for this stuff lies somewhere between lies somewhere. There definitely has to be, I think, something done to make judges enforce it a bit more, but I also think that like hopefully it eventually gets better with time, just in terms of like you have like a codified, you know, like tournament procedure, or like how people play in tournaments gets more and more sort of formalized, and like it gets more routine for people to be doing these things, and like it just gets like these tools calling judges for slow play and stuff get used more often. But yeah, it requires a few different things, I think, a few different changes to make meaningful improvements on.
All right, I think that's,
And also like incentives, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a lot of tournament stuff, right? Like, it turns out everything is sort of interdependent in a tournament setting. The tournament structure sets the incentives set how people play in games, that affect whatever, like everything else, right?
Yeah, which I guess sort of takes us to the last part about tournament structure, which is what the top cut looks like. We've seen a few different things tried, and I think we're constantly looking for ways to mitigate the fact that in a format as high variance as CDH, single elimination blows.
It's so bad, and you just and you also just can't play enough Magic to get reasonable like a reasonable estimate of how well somebody's doing in a given day.
Like even if you had a 50% win rate, which is like just absurd, right? Like that's
like, so far above average. That's like imagine going to a GP and like having like a 75 percent like match win percentage. Like that's insane.
No.
Like
wait,
I'm not sure that's ever been
game win
done.
percentage, which is like match win
actually
percentage
that's true. Yeah.
Is a lot easier to get high, precisely because like if you have a 60% game win percentage, that means that you have like a 75, like I forget what the math is, but if you're playing best of 3,
but
and
yeah,
you have
sorry,
a 60% game
like
win,
a 75% like game win percentage over the course of a GP, like that's insane. I'm not sure that's ever been achieved in terms of,
I think some of
like,
the top pro players have had like runs where they're around like 70-75%. Maybe that's matches though, I'm not even sure,
but that's
it certainly happened over like one GP, but
it puts you in like Hall of Fame territory to have achieved that over a sufficiently long like tournament. Which means that like,
and so you're at that level, you make a top 16, or like even worse, you make a top like a top 64 or something, because you know semis and finals is a pretty short top cut, and as tournaments get larger, it won't shock me to see moving to a larger top cut. Like if you have a 50% win rate in like top tables, that still leaves you with like either a 25% chance or potentially a 12.5% chance of taking a whole tournament down, which is like just such an insane amount of variance. And then like, oh, you know, someone just has an absolutely busted opener. Cool, you were the leader the whole way through the tournament. You went like, you know, you had the best record coming out of Swiss, and then it's like, oh, well, one person just had the nuts, so you can go home now, and top 16 prizes is $50. Cool.
Is your entry. Yep.
One thing I was actually, and you'll be able to tell me exactly why this is stupid, but I was just thinking about this, really disincentivizing drawing and pushing people to play for wins would be top 16, it's not the winners of those pods who go on. It's like, it's just you get to play one more round of Magic and get a chance to earn more points, and then the top 4 points leaders go into the finals. Is that too much of a feels bad? Because that does kind of like, it is in a sense the players with the best performances are the ones who are in the finals.
I mean, I think that potentially could work. I mean, I'd have to do some math to figure out how much of the time it's just going to be like really obvious IDs.
Is the big issue, and that gets even worse for streams.
Why would people
right?
ID though? If there's almost you're almost always incentivized to push for wins. In that case, I think, right?
Well,
because
wonder,
it's so easy to get
passed
by, to get jumped by someone behind you.
Assuming you construct your pods in a snake, so you have like, the pod A would have top seed, 8th seed, 9th seed, 16th seed. I wonder, does pod D that has 4th seed, 5th seed, whatever it would be, 12th seed, 13th seed, I think, are 12th and 13th dead and are 4th and 5th live on a draw is a possibility. It would depend on.
Also, I feel like you could play with the points awarded in the top 16 too.
I guess you could actually just say that you get no
too.
points for draws in the top 16.
Yeah.
That would mitigate that, and it's an untimed round, so you don't have people who feel bad in that they couldn't just make it to the top. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think
because it would just like, we've seen this before where like someone goes on like a crazy tear in Swiss, and I mean, we should stop just blankly referring to it as Swiss, because I feel like that almost perpetuates and like, we've got to keep in
the regular rounds, non-cut rounds.
Yes, in regular rounds, someone goes on like some crazy, like 4-0. 401, like just some crazy run, and then they make it to top 16, and then boom, it's over. Like, that almost feels like a disservice to the viewers. Like, I would want to see that person in the finals, right? Obviously they've got, and you're then still, even when you structure turn order in the top 16, you're giving them like advantages, right? You're advantaged by doing well in the regular rounds in terms of seeding, but you're also advantaged in terms of like, you still have a shot for the finals, if you did well enough, right? And this is the thing too, is I think it becomes it's only you could probably tweak the points so that it's only if someone does like exceptionally well, like maybe the top 2 players in regular rounds could have the possibility to lose in top 16 and then make it to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, like
you also want to make sure that everyone who does get into that top 16 game has a real chance at getting into the finals, right? And maybe it has to be that someone loses their other matches or something, but like, it would be no fun if you were 16 in top 16 and you won your game, but you just never had a chance to get to the finals. So there'd have to be some tweaking, but
we definitely have seen as well, like 1 through 4 in various configurations buys, right?
You could actually do something instead of this would probably only work at smaller tournaments, but you could do either a top 8 or a top 12 cut.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen. I know
top 12
Boston
probably work out more or less the same way as just having the top seed move directly to the finals. But a top 8...
I think Boston did a top 10 cut at one point, which is the top 2 in pairings went to the finals, and then the next 8 had to battle it out for the last 2 slots in the finals pod, which seemed like okay to me as well for smaller tournaments.
Yeah,
for smaller tournaments, I like there is something nice about top 16 in that it really feels like I think you could definitely argue that it would be similar to just do a top 13, I guess, right, where the first place kind of insta goes to the finals. But I do feel like there is benefit to just it's a feels good thing to have more people in the top 16
The other
and more
the
games
other
played.
idea that I've sort of workshopped in my head, and it's cursed and would require like some very precise controls and planning and good communication, is trying to implement some sort of double elimination system.
Yeah.
Where
inside of the
because you
what was the oh god we did the math at some point,
So
right?
the-
It was
the-
like
because-
very cursed numbers of people required to make it happen.
Well, so the thing is because you have unequal numbers of winners and losers after each round, you actually have to bring in more people partway through. Like essentially what you would do is you would just fill out losers bracket with like whatever the math works out to. Let's say it's going to wind up being like a 4-round final. Essentially, if you're outside the top 16, you get brought in later and later into losers brackets. Like the person with 17th is the last person added back into the losers bracket, so they don't have to win. They only have to win, I guess, one game in losers bracket to like be in grand finals or whatever. And like you sort of fill out
Or semis, like loser semis, I guess, because
sorry, like the
right, yeah.
Like let's just pretend I haven't worked with the numbers, but let's just pretend that you would need 25 people in total. Essentially, you would have top 16, you'd play, then you'd have winners and losers play, and then you'd bring in like 6 people from 25 down to 19 to fill out losers bracket. Then you'd bring 18 and 17 to fill out the next round of losers bracket, and then you'd have grand finals or something like that. I have the numbers somewhere, but it's very cursed, and I don't think we're likely to see it anytime soon.
Yeah. It feels bad to be the like the person who loses a round and then you win like two rounds in losers bracket, and then like the person that was below you on the standings gets brought in for a round and they win and then go up to grands to play the people who won. It's just like okay.
I guess it would depend.
But anyway, yeah.
The longer it goes on, the more you could argue that it's like you'd actually rather be 17th than 16th.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to play that much Magic, and like
I just mean like if you have to win, like I think that like if you have to win 3 rounds in losers, for example, to win, or like if you go lose, win, and that wins you the tournament, I think it might actually just be easier to not to be brought in later and go win or whatever. Like,
yes, yeah, because you're gonna have to win 2 at some point anyway.
Yeah, it's a whole
Anyway,
big mess.
Cursed, but hilarious to look into, and potentially could be a fun one to toy around with, especially.
And I've
because it's the main thing we're trying to get around here, again as a reminder, is that single elimination sucks in CDH, and you like really don't want to have to do it as a competitor, but it's like the only way that you can do it in terms of like having prizing work correctly and have like a story that you can tell for the people actually playing and on broadcast and like post tournament and stuff.
Could you now I'm just thinking, could you do like obviously best of 2 match, or like first to 2 win matches get just terrible because they create all sorts of incentives for like king making and throwing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what if you just had a thing where like you shuffled people around and then like you had to get 2 wins,
like
and that
a mini Swiss or something, or like a mini
like
random
you
thing.
just have like the top some number of players. Again, you'd have to do math to figure out the optimal numbers. You play and then you just shuffle people randomly, and then like everyone who gets 2 wins is in the finals or something. I guess I might just take
then you get you also get the like the multi-round issue of like perverse incentives, where like you have 2 people in your pod who have a win apiece, and then 2 people who don't have wins, and then like
but the difference is that if
wins,
one of them wins, you're not dead, right? You keep playing until the finals are full.
Sure, but like you would prefer for neither of them to have it because you would rather them be further away from getting their 2 wins.
You
so that
sequester
have
everyone
longer.
so they don't know who won.
And you're
Optimal.
and if
optimal
you
tournament
ask, you get
structure-
DQ'd.
The optimal tournament structure was figured out in the original season of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime,
Yeah.
where it's everyone gets on an island and you get these stars. And you fight for the stars, or maybe it's the battle city, where you get those location cards. That's the anyway. Any other remarks on tournament structure before we move things along?
I guess the one little piece, is sort of some interesting idea, or I guess not really. I mean, it's sort of interesting, but mostly just like to consider if you yourself are running tournaments, or if you like have opinions on how tournaments are run and you want to talk to your local TO and stuff. Which is that it really is correct, and I think all of us agree with this, that tournament structure really should be changing and should be altered, like even like pretty significantly, depending on the tournament size. So the number of entrants and competitors that you have, because especially taking a bunch of this stuff into account, the way that even a 100-person tournament is going to run is starkly different from the way that you're going to run like a 40-person tournament.
Yeah, tournaments are small enough and short enough that any structure, if you scale it up or down a sufficient amount, will create some like really weird and artificial breakpoints that you probably want to avoid. And so like that's just something to keep in mind, that whatever works well for a 200-person tournament might just create something really, really wonky if you only have 40 people.
So be open. I'm not sure I could tell you all of the different breakpoints for P, because there's like infinite ways to run your tournaments and like find breakers and what you actually like, how many points you're doing and all that value and stuff. So I'm not sure even how many examples we could run through here, but definitely take into account and do some thinking on it, do some like maybe simulation, like how it might run, and just like see if you can sort of eyeball any weird edge cases, and just sort of do some digging around and sort of messing around to see if you can avoid those in any easy way.
I guess like as an example, we did have a situation at one of the Buffalo tournaments we went to where I think the original proposed structure was supposed to be 4 rounds and a top 4 cut, and then there was a proposal to add a top 16 round as well. I think it was do 3 rounds and then a top 16 cut.
Yeah.
And
cut.
Basically
it turned out
that like
I did the math.
The correct play that would have just meant that the correct play for everyone involved was just the top 16 players, or I guess it was 4 rounds then a top 16. Yeah, it was 4 rounds then a top, like add a top 16.
4 rounds then top 16. Yeah.
So they were just like, let's add a top 16, and Reed basically did the math and went, okay, so that means everyone in round 4 should just draw, and then we'll just play the top 16
and then bypass,
as round 4.
and we just play top 16 anyway. Yeah. So like we're adding a round that isn't actually going to add a round, because the result is everybody gets a draw, and then we just play the same round anyway.
Yeah. With a different result where it becomes single elimination and people get the feels bads.
Yeah.
So like that's just an example of clearly we were at like a weird break point for that structure, and that'll happen at different numbers depending on how many points you're assigning for different results and how many people you have and how many rounds you have and all of that.
Oh, actually, I have a quick question for you guys. I think we'd mentioned points structure for draws and how you should point them earlier, but do you think so? You obviously don't want them to be 0. We pointed that out. Is there any amount of draws that should equal a win?
So the initial obvious answer is 4. Where
to have the same number of points come out of a pod no matter what the result is.
Yeah, the same number of points come out of a pod, or essentially playing 4 games, drawing all of them is the equivalent to losing 3 and winning 1, which is your expected value. I think currently most tournaments are doing 5 points for a win and 1 for a draw, which I don't hate because it does create a disincentive for a draw.
Yeah, it encourages people to just play out the games and actually get a result that is
like it's better to go
I think is a
1-3
reasonable
than it is to
incentive.
go 0-4, which is a reasonable thing.
Yeah,
but it's also like this is another like weird breakpoint thing where we're at, because tournaments are around 5 rounds. We're at a weird point where a number of draws can equal a win, but like kind of they can't, because if you like, let's say it's a 5-round tournament, like 5 draws equals a win. I mean, sure, that is a win, but that's not going to get you into top 16 unless it's a tiny tournament. So like it just creates some weird breakpoint things there. I think conceptually some number of draws should equal a win eventually.
Probably equal a win,
but
yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm fine with the current tournament math being that tournaments, like with the length that tournaments wind up being, getting a win's worth of draws means that you're not going to make top cut, and I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think that is just a good thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's now time for everyone's favorite segment. Gut check.
Gut check.
Check.
Oh, got a delayed one this time.
gotta keep.
Made him wait for it. Let's go.
You thought I wasn't
Okay.
gonna do it, but here I am.
So
I had faith.
this is going to be not a great gut check for formatting.
Because you came up with it 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, maybe like 10 minutes ago. Give me some credit, Reeve. Come on.
I will do no such thing. You have not proven that I need to give you credit on the
you would have earned the
topic
credit
of hot
if you hadn't
gut checks.
opened this episode by being like, I'm also just passing off my normal hosting responsibility.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. So this is going to be bad for the poll on the server, but I'm kind of curious. What non-CEDH Magic projects are you guys working on?
Well, this isn't really.
So it could be a casual deck, it could be Cube, it could be EDH, non-EDH, Modern, Legacy, well, whatever. Just non-CEDH Magic projects are you working on right now? Or do you want to work on? Like, do you have it
really?
in the
It's not
pipeline?
really a gut check, but we'll
No,
check it anyway.
I just want to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like semi-active. I actually need to go back and do some retooling with some new releases. Semi-actively working on my my version of an unpowered vintage cube, which is pretty fun. I still think that I think I need to do a bit of work tuning some of the archetypes, but I feel like I have, I'm a big enough fan of Cube in general, and I would like to think that I have enough opinions about game design and, etc., and how to, like, actually make archetypes and such work in cubes that, yeah, it's just,
I'm looking forward to playing it.
I you definitely have
well,
opinions
if you were looking
about
forward
design,
to playing through it, then
considering
you should
our
respond to
quarterly vintage cube changes bitch session.
Yeah.
Also,
Be real.
yeah, listeners, don't believe his lies when he says fun.
Just because you don't like Shuldred doesn't mean that it's not a fun card,
It's
okay?
not a fun
Oh yeah, I forgot Reed has stupid opinions on this.
No, it's okay. I don't have an issue with Shield. I have an issue when you're like, oh, I'm not going to put in
that
really
cube,
strong
yeah.
cards that aren't fun. Also, there's a Shieldred in my cube.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, I think
It's-
Minsc is
Shouldred's
way
in a-
more fun than Shieldred.
Shuldred is an objectively fun card. I will hear no different.
Why
That's
is
your
nobody
problem if you
having fun?
disagree.
I specifically requested it. Says the Shieldred player.
Uh,
I am working on an update to I've been theory crafting a version of Dandan because my list is currently stock and I have ideas to change it. As well as I help curate. It's not my project, but I help curate a actually quite strong commander cube that we do some drafts on the
it's like
r//
weirdly
server.
high powered from it's like weirdly high
Yeah,
powered in my experience.
People get like
you don't
some real
expect it to
decks
be.
going.
I I had a real deck. I had Zur Necropotence with what's it? I had Zur Necropotence with a full consult package and like 4 Grand Abolishers and some fast mana. It was like
Oh
pretty
my
good.
God.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've been I started this project probably when the set came out, but I've been revitalized to finish my Lord of the Rings battle box, where it's not just the precons upgraded. It's like, I mean, there's some changes in commanders, but it's I think I'm looking at maybe a 5 or 6 deck battle box and used hard stip only cards printed in Lord of the Rings, not exclusively new cards, but definitely leaning towards more new cards. Very lore stipped as well, like even down to art, where it's like Opt is a card that would be really good in the Nazgul deck, but it's the art has like Arwen and Aragorn, like, you know, they're leaning their foreheads against each other, and it's like, oh no, that's clearly a good guy card. Can't run that in a bad guy deck. And so that has been a fun challenge, and also the very challenging in that they printed. It's so hard to collect all of the cards together. You think, oh, okay, what are all of the Lord of the Rings printings? You think just Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings Commander.
And then Lord of the Rings Commander 2.
And then, yeah.
They had a jump start.
Definitely
there was also the Part 2 Holiday Collection, and then there was also them printing. Did you know Diabolic Intent has a Lord of the Rings printing?
I did not.
I didn't.
I think I've seen it, but I have no idea where it's from.
Did you know at the same time they printed Diabolic Intent, they also printed Doran the Siege Tower as Treebeard, which is sick. I love that.
It's very funny.
But so adding in all of these cards, and you can, I really want the decks to be powerful, synergistic, have their own themes, not like have a lot of overlap between each other. So it's lots of steps, which I think, you know, restrictions breed creativity. So I'm really excited to get this thing done and then proxy it up and, you know, jam some games with people.
Absolutely. Oh, actually, before we move on, because we're sort of setting on the topic in multiple ways here, I did want to get your opinion on this, Lyndon, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I was drafting the Commander Cube, the high power Commander Cube, for the second time recently.
Yep.
And the first time I had noticed, just out of the corner of my eye while drafting, while things were going around, because I was in Zur, of course, I saw a Gitrog monster going around. I was like, okay, that's sort of cool to have in this cube. Like, you know, maybe there's some, like, you know, I saw like some Tayam going, and like, you know, there's some like cool, interesting stuff that might just like want a Gitrog monster in the deck. And I was like, yeah, you know, good flavor. And then later in the draft, I saw a Dakmor Salvage going around. I was like, oh, there's like a Gitrog monster deck in this cube. Oh, neat. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that one. For like another draft or whatever. Cool, interesting. Came back this time. I saw a second pick Gitrog monster after first picking a Guy's Cradle, and I was like, well, I mean, if I pick it now, nobody's gonna pick the Dakmor Salvage. So certainly I should just be able to build a very functional Gitrog monster deck, right? Because a lot of the Gitrog monster stuff, not a whole lot of other decks actually want that stuff, right?
No.
I mean, like discard outlets and like a bunch of like random lands.
Titans,
obviously, Eldrazi Titan. Obviously, I'm competing with like lands, but I can just like pick up lands whenever. Yeah. And then like, you know, if there's like a Life in the Loam or like some random dredgers, like certainly this works. I got to the end of the draft to realize that there is exactly one discard outlet in the entire cube, and it was Scourge Familiar.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no like chains of Mephistopheles
Nope.
or anything?
Zero. Nothing else except for a Scourge Familiar that lets
Get
you
baited.
discard cards infinitely.
Oh, that's actually cringe.
I built an entire
there's-
Gitrog
there's a
monster
ghost
deck,
they built for it, it's just not in your comments.
including a full set of fetch lands, the Eldrazi Titan, the Dakmor Salvage, and like I was at like 40 lands. I got a crop rotation. I got crop rotation E-Zone with the Cradle to filter the mana as well. I think I got the Twilight Mire too to filter the mana.
That's just actually pain.
If it
I
makes you
got
feel
like
better,
the entire deck,
I-
and there were no discard
If it makes
outlets.
you feel better, I drafted like sack outlets, Academy Rector, Hulk, like a Hulk pile, or not like a full Hulk pile, but like a one that would probably win me the game if I had like anything going
Yeah.
on, that sort of stuff. And then just went and looked at the cube and was like, wait, there's not a Pattern of Rebirth in here.
Nice.
That was,
So you're partially in charge of curating this
I make
list, Morgan, right?
suggestions.
What
I don't actually.
you
get to make
suggested
changes.
discard outlets.
There's now a putative
for the record, Lyndon, I made some very heavy suggestions after drafting that deck.
Oh wow. Cool.
Anyway, I just wanted to get your opinion on that, Lyndon. Do you have a verdict?
Yeah, no, that. Sorry.
Do you have a verdict?
Yeah, that's cringe.
No, it's
Wow,
I just
wanted
feel like
confirmation.
we're
I just wanted another opinion.
the one discard outlet that was cut from the deck 5 years
Yes.
ago.
Well, okay, if you think about it from the
It's like-
perspective of a cube, I'm not saying there shouldn't be another discard outlet to make Gitrog work, but from the
Yeah, but
perspective
it
of a
makes you
cube,
not
Scourge
need,
Familiar
like,
is
yeah,
much
crop
more likely to be
rotation and
playable
stuff. Yeah.
in other decks with
Yeah.
like news stuff or whatever. Like it's not
I
just
think chains is playable.
chains. Yeah, chains is definitely one that is playable. Should probably be in there. People complained about stacks though. It's a tough balance.
Oh yeah, there were also no treasures aside from the deck board for the record. No life in the loam, no grave troll.
Wait, no,
No, there's a life.
no loam.
Yeah,
I like.
Well, I didn't. There was not in it when I was drafting.
There was.
Was there? Okay, I missed it then. My bad.
Yeah, I don't think you need the other dredgers. Loam would be nice though. Okay, and before we wrap things up, we have a listener question, and this listener question comes to us from Rick, who asks, "What does the overload mana cost on a theoretical new duress have to be for it to see CEDH play?"
We talked about this a bit before the podcast, just before we started recording.
Yeah,
I think the general consensus is 6.
Wait, no.
no,
Sorry,
Reed.
No.
That's on my messed up interpretation of it.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to be clear, so
Okay,
you don't
so-
think
so-
Reed is high. That was for
No,
a duress
yeah,
that
sorry.
takes
It was-
all of the non-creature, non-land cards from
That's right,
all
yes.
of your opponent's
Yes.
hands.
Very just like omni thought distortion. Not okay. Sorry, yeah, for this one, yeah, I think omni
one
duress
black,
probably
black.
I think 3 makes sense. to me.
But I think like 2 and a black is. I think like 1 black. I guess honestly it could be 2 and a black.
I think 2 in black's probably a bit sketchy. I think 1 black is probably about right for the effect.
Would you play that in any decks?
I think it could be cheap. I think it could be 1 and a black.
2?
One? No, not maybe double black.
I think black.
So
makes the
okay,
most
what
sense in
are
that
you
case.
concerned about with it being 1 and a black? Is it that you just strip all the counterspells from people's
I'd
hands
play that
before you
card-
win?
Well,
Yeah, I'd play that card. That card.
and if you
on decks.
like, and you also just get to see, and like
Yes.
you basically like strip all hidden information from the
It's
from the pod. that isn't
triple
you.
Gataxian Probe, which
Yeah.
that just makes
Well,
Reed
I mean,
nuts. So
like, no, it's not. It's telepathy.
which is still busted
sure,
if it
yeah.
comes along with the duress for each of those players. Like I think
like
just
the duress.
fact
The
that-
thing is duress in 1v1 is strong, not just because you only have one opponent, but because you have complete information for making your decision. When you're duressing, like, I mean, I've probably played. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna.
I've played a
but
decent
I would
amount.
wager that
I've-
I've played more single target hand attack in CDH than most people.
Yeah,
At
I
least in
have
this
also
podcast.
played a very reasonable amount Again,
It
like,
is.
Viral's played a large
They are
amount of it,
very
but-
high skill cards. Like you need to know what to take because it's like you can't
Yeah.
always.
Well,
take
first
of all, you need to
their
know who to
interaction.
point
You
it
can't
at
always take their
is the issue.
proactive cards, and it becomes easier to make those kind of decisions. And the you get higher EV for each card you take
That
when you
being said,
know all the information of your opponents.
Morgan,
So,
I
like,
think
I can take.
But, like, the thing
win
is-
condition,
the
win
thing is
condition,
that, like,
whatever.
that just creates I don't know, I feel like it creates an interesting political situation. Keep in mind it's a duress, so it's like one of the most counterable cards. So if you're talking about stripping 3 pieces of interaction before going for your win condition, like,
so.
unless your
the other more
opponents are like
toxic-
absurdly confident and just let it resolve and they're like, you won't be able to win after, it's just gonna get countered.
But okay, that's like, is Demonic Tutor just going to get countered? Like, it for 1 in a black, that's a very, very strong effect for 1 in a black. That's all I'm saying. And
I
using the
think
argument of
other-
it's just
the
going to
other
get countered,
issue
I
with
think
it is
doesn't
that
hold up.
that's the base case. The actual very toxic part about it, if it's 1 in a black, is I go, cool, land Mana Crypt, duress on the play, get all of your
Yeah.
proactive shit out of your, strip the crypts out of all of your hands, or like strip your fish, strip your fast mana, strip your interaction. We play
You
2
can
more
still-
turn cycles where you don't get to do anything because your turn 1 was disrupted, like
But you
very
still have that
acutely,
at
and I
2
still
in
have
a
a
black.
plan, and then
I
Sorry?
feel like that's still
2 in a
I don't-
black.
that's what I was
still
saying.
a
Is
lot.
That's
that
what I was
any
saying.
more toxic
I was saying
than
one.
the other?
That's
like,
why I was saying 1 black.
Is that any more toxic
I think
than
at the
like a turn
very
1
minimum
Rhystic
you could do
Study
black,
or a
black.
turn 1 wheel on the play?
No, but why would we ever
Or,
introduce that into the format? Like,
Yeah.
I
No.
would like 1 black is still very playable. I think in a couple of things, like in some like low color black decks, without having nearly the same effect
Yeah,
on early
I think this
games.
exercise is in what is the cost for it to be fringe playable, not for it to be a Rhystic Study tier card.
Yeah,
Well, no, but I think
Obviously, I
it's
don't think it's a
substantially
Rhystic
less-
Study tier card at 2 in a black, but I think that is not the minimum that you could. I think you could make it 1 black and it's still probably playable.
I don't know. I think that, like, if you're talking about it in the case of a I don't know, could you introduce some other? What if it overloaded on everyone? Like, so you also had to
Yeah,
discard a
including
non-creature
you.
online card.
1 in a black, I think is fine.
I feel like I'd like
Might
that
even
design
just
a
be able
lot
to do it
more,
for a
because if you're
black.
playing it turn 1 off a
you
crypt,
might be able to do it for just like a duress, where it's just like, I don't know.
A single black mana for that effect?
No. I don't
you
because
duress yourself,
because you
right?
get to pick
I don't know.
everyone's cards. So you discard your worst card and everyone else's
Sure.
best card. But I think I think at 2 mana, then like if you're playing it early off fast mana, you're like going really close to empty-handed.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I think the situation, I don't know, it is a little awkward where
What about a version of it where it's the Omni duress, but everybody duresses the person to the left or right of them? Like, just pick a direction and they duress the person to that direction of them.
that could be interesting. So then it's much less good at stripping everyone's hands of interaction,
Yeah.
because like if you're concerned about it, you just go like, okay, well, I'll just leave this interactive spell in your hand.
Yeah.
That card seems like it sucks. I wouldn't play that over like actual
Wait,
duress.
no. I think in that case you would have it.
It costs a single.
No.
black to
You
overload.
would
like
be
it or
include-
just.
Oh, then
Yeah, like everybody
like
else.
each
yeah,
of the other
Like,
players.
yeah, each of the other.
I'm
players
playing a
duresses each
card
other.
that makes me lose a card of my opponent's choice, and also I only get to choose
Yeah,
one
sorry.
of my
Yeah,
opponents.
that, sorry.
That
Yes,
sucks.
that was the idea was like it's your opponents like duressing
Okay.
each other. So you don't get to just do the busted thing on turn 1 where like, oh, your game plans are all invalidated unless you're playing like some exclusively creature deck that doesn't care about having their hand duress before they get to play any cards. And then like it sort of like limits,
I actually really like that card design. That's kind of cool.
because it's also like less broken because like if you're obviously in a position to win that turn, they're going to leave interaction in hand, so it's sort of self-balancing, but it's also like still good, right? Like it's a 1 for
I also
Some
I also
amount.
Everyone reveals everyone's hand playing hands up. You
Yeah.
get you get 3, like, maybe not the optimal cards for you, but you get like 3 solid cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Realistically.
And presumably you get the best proactive cards out of their hands, right?
And I think people being forced to discard their win conditions more would be very good for the format.
It's very healthy. I've been saying that since Flash was legal. Of like, Flash Tolk doesn't exist as a deck if like Thoughtseizes are actually playable in the format.
I don't know that that's true, but
well, it does. It does. It gets a lot weaker because like there are just fewer replaceable pieces, and like if you just get the Hulk discarded out of your hand, then it's like, okay, well, this gets a lot harder.
Well, I mean, I feel like Hulk decks have historically played reanimation.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
like,
there wasn't as much reanimation at the time in the decks.
Cool. Well, that about wraps up for this episode. If you guys like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us on Twitter at Into the North Pod, by our email, intonorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, the invite link for which can be found in the description for this episode. Special thanks to all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work towards improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a patron, we are at patreon.com/northpodcast. Thank you as always to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, and to Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo. Next episode will be on 2 weeks. Until then, see you.
Bye.
have a good one.